I interviewed personally a woman named Barbara Snyder. Barbara was dying of multiple sclerosis. We got documents from the Mayo Clinic documenting her case. She was first contracted multiple sclerosis when she was 16 years old. Her health deteriorated very rapidly over the next 16 years. She was hospitalized repeatedly. And she was dying. And they said, there's nothing we can do. Next time she gets pneumonia, which she will, we're going to let her die because we're just prolonging the inevitable. So here she is. She's in bed, in hospice, in her home. She's got a tube in her throat so she can breathe through oxygen canisters. She's blind now. You can see our gray shapes. Her body is twisted like a pretzel. Her fingers are touching her wrists, and her toes are extended. Her legs have lost all their muscle tone. She hadn't walked in 7 years. And she's literally on her deathbed. She lost control of her urination and bowels. She got tubes in her. Well, some of her friends called up WMBI, which is a Christian radio station in Chicago with Moody Bible Institute, and said, hey, would y'all just ask people to pray for Barbara? She's on her deathbed. Just pray for her. Well, we documented that at least 450 people began praying for Barbara. How do we know? Because they wrote letters to Barbara saying, I'm praying for you. So on Pentecost Sunday, Barbara's in her bed. 2 of her friends are there, actually 3 of her friends, and they're reading her some of the letters from people who've written saying they're praying for her. And all of a sudden, Barbara hears from a voice from the corner of the room saying, get up, my child, and walk. Well, she's stunned. There's nobody in the corner of the room. It's like, what in the world? So she yanks out the tube from her throat and said, go get my parents. God just told me to get up and walk. So they run out, but she can't wait. She jumps out of bed. So I said to her, what was that like? And she said, Lee, the first thing I noticed is my feet were flat on the floor. And my feet have been rigidly extended for years. And I was amazed by that. And then I looked and my hands had come uncurled. They'd been rigidly closed like claws. And then she said, the third thing I noticed, I could see. She said, you'd think that'd be the first thing I'd notice. It was the third thing I noticed. And Barbara and her mother comes in and grabs the cast on Barbara's leg, said, your muscle tone has returned. This was Pentecost Sunday. There was a church service at their Wesleyan church where they attended in Wheaton, Illinois. They went to the church that night to tell everybody. The pastor is up there and he says, does anybody have any announcements? Barbara walking down the center aisle. Now, nobody's seen Barbara walk for 7 years. They've seen her in wheelchairs. And so the whole place erupts with people singing Amazing Grace. I once was blind and now I see. Next day, she goes to one of her physicians who says later, when I saw her walking toward my office, my first thought was, oh, she died and this is a ghost, because this is medically impossible. In fact, one of her doctors described her originally as one of the most hopelessly ill patients he had ever encountered in 35 years of practice. And doctors ended up writing about this in books they wrote because they said what an honor it was to be witnesses to a true miracle of God. So Barbara being totally cured, she ended up marrying a pastor. They had a little church in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is where I went and interviewed her.